June 1997, civil war erupts in the Republic of Congo. 25 Peace Corps volunteers are stranded there. The first to get out is our very own Darien native, Jen Rikart. She's with us tonight on Darien Dateline. Welcome, Jen. Welcome home.
Thank you.
And welcome. Thanks for watching Darien Dateline. Jen, my first question to you is, what is it about Africa that attracted you there to join the Peace Corps?
Oh, that's a good question. That would probably start me way back when I was 13 years old. I always wanted to go there, and I always wanted to help people. I've always been involved in volunteering my time and working in various places, soup kitchens and working with church. And I always wanted to travel. I love traveling, so that's always been something that I've always wanted to integrate the two is something that I've always wanted to do. And I've always been interested in going over there finally. So it's been an 11-year dream for me to finally get over there.
And what was it like when this dream became a reality?
I was pretty ecstatic, and I still am. Just the fact that I finally did it, it really made me happy. And now I feel like I can just, do whatever. I feel like I've done it. I've done what I've always wanted to do.
And what did they have you doing there while you were in the Republic of Congo?
Well, I was a water sanitation technician and a health educator. So what that means is that I was building things that would improve the quality of their drinking water and also improve their health conditions. So I was giving education on AIDS and on issues of washing hands, and also teaching them to use latrines because over in the Congo they don't use bathrooms. Obviously there's no flushing or running water. So I would also be into construction and building latrines, building rain catchment systems that would give them potable water, and fixing springs.
So take us through a day in the life of Jen Rikart in the Congo.
Okay, well, to start out, I guess I wake up in the morning and wake up to the sound of roosters crowing outside my window at about 5 in the morning. Everyone gets up at 5 in the morning in Africa, so everyone is awake by then.
Why is that?
It's just the way morning breaks very early, and the sun sets really quickly at around 7 o'clock at night. So there's not many hours in the day, as they believe, to just sit around and do whatever they need to do. Yeah, so then after that I hear children screaming, running around outside, and that just gets me up by no choice of my own. I have to get up because I can't sleep in. After that, I pretty much take care of cleaning up my house. People visit me. In Africa, people do visit you a lot. It's a very open and friendly environment as far as people visit, and you always leave your door open. It's considered rude if you leave your door shut.
How do they react to you as an outsider, as a stranger? Because here you came into this small little village, totally sticking out, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
How do they treat you?
Well, it's funny because whenever I would go into smaller villages, that's when I really got the idea that, I've never seen a white person, and they would stop me and they would point to me and say, Mandeli, Mandeli, which means white person in their tribal language. And they would stop me and just say, where are you going? What are you doing here? And just the common questions, and I'd have to answer over and over again. I'm a Peace Corps volunteer, I'm here to help. So what are you going to give us? I had to go through the same questions again and again, but I got used to that.
So you get up, you get your house ready, and then you go out for the day. What types of duties were you responsible for?
Well, I usually start out, I would go out to small villages and work outside Messenja, which is my village, which had about 16,000 people. And the other villages around were a little bit small. Well, there were 300 people average for surrounding villages. I would take my motorcycle and drive out there that Peace Corps gave me. And I would go out there and basically work with people that I found. I would have to be in charge of my own job and find people, find the connections, and find the people that were interested in what I was there to teach, and work with them, try to teach them how to teach their community. So.
Well, teach their community what? What sorts of things?
Well, to start out, I first went in there, and there were some small springs that needed to be fixed. And so I would go in there and, talk to some people that would say, oh, the water, it's really dirty, and the children are dying of diarrhea and other situations like that, microbes that come from the water. And so I would say, well, I can help you with that, and I can tell you the technical problems and what you need to do to fix that, and if you want to work with me, I'd love to work with you. And so it was really a real cooperation on that.
Were they very open to taking an outsider along on their projects and working with you?
Yeah, that's funny because they're almost too eager to take people on the outsiders, because Congo isn't a country that has a lot of tourism, and on top of it, they have people that, the Europeans and the French that normally come in, and missionaries. They have a lot of missionaries that have come in before, and they're used to having people just come in and pretty much give them presents, what they call cadeaux in French. And so Peace Corps philosophy is not to give cadeaux, it's to teach and to live and work with the people and really show them how they can do it themselves and to be autonomous. So people are very eager because, they believe that I'm there to give them presents, and once, that's an obstacle I did have to fight, but they are very welcoming to get to know outside people.
What did you find the living conditions were like there? I mean, we always see horror stories of third world countries and very shoddy situations. What was it like?
Well, it's funny. It's really like a different planet. It's really, to start off, I think it's the transportation that is the first thing that gets to you if you're an outside person, if you're a tourist going through the Congo. If anybody was to go in there right now, the first thing you'd realize is that if you wanted to get from point A to point B, it would probably, where normally it would take you here about a couple minutes to get on the train, Metro North, to get into the city, the same distance would take you about 2 days.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I understand you had quite a horror story on a train ride that you took.
Yeah. One time I was stuck for 38 hours on a train and I couldn't move. I couldn't get out from my seat. So I was in my seat for 38 hours, crammed in with no food or no water. And pretty much the train was jam-packed with goats, animals, people, crying children, and it was about 95 degrees outside. And that was all just, actually at the time nobody really knew why we stopped and why we were waiting, but everyone waits and it's okay.
And the other transportation modes are hitching along on a truck?
Yep, there's a manioc truck that usually you can take rides in.
And what is manioc?
Okay, manioc is cassava, which is pretty much all over the world except in America, I think. It's a staple food that's made out of starch, and it's a cassava plant. And you take the roots, and the mamas pound this stuff, and they grind it, and they form it into, it has the consistency of rubber cement, dried, and it tastes like sour milk. It's really not pleasant. And when I first got there, I absolutely couldn't stand it. I couldn't eat it. But now I crave it, and I just miss it. But,
so you hop aboard those trucks
Yep.
and just hope that somebody comes along?
yeah, well, what it is that you see these trucks that come along, and they take extra, if they have room for people to ride on top of the manioc, that smells like sour milk and has the consistency of rubber cement, and you just sit on there. It's wrapped with banana leaves and other things, and you just climb on top of there, pile in, fight for a seat, and you just ride until you get to your destination through trails. That's basically, it looks like any Pathfinder commercial you would see, going through rivers and over hills and getting stuck in the mud, and you're guaranteed to break down and be stuck there for a couple hours, so you bring a book.
Well, one of the things you were doing, you said, was improving the sanitation conditions there. Are they very cleanly in their ways, or?
Well, that's hard to say. They're cleanly in their own ways, but what they see as clean and dirty is different from what we see as clean and dirty. I have a hard time trying to describe and explain to them that there are microbes on your hands, and I would have to teach them and find ways to teach them how to describe, you need to wash your hands. That was one of my problems that I had once. And, they look at their hands and they say, well, there's no dirt on them, so they must be clean. And I'd say, no, there's something invisible there. After that, so finally I would find a way to teach them. I would say, I would take pepper or piment spray, like a hot chili pepper. I would stick it on my finger, and I would teach the children in school, and I would say, would you touch your eye after touching the pepper? They would say no. I'd say, would you wipe this off and then touch your eye? And they know better, because it would still burn your eye. And I said, well, that's like a microbe. It's still in your hands, and you have to wash your hands.
And one of the other things that you were there was to teach them about health and safety and AIDS. And what do they think AIDS is?
AIDS, they believe, in French, AIDS is SIDA, which is, they believe that it stands for Système International de Détruire les Amoureux, which means International System to Kill People Who Are in Love. They basically, I don't know if it's a joke or if it's something that they actually believe, but they do say that that they believe that the white man brought AIDS. It's an integrated system or a means to kill off Africans, and that's a prejudice that I always had to come up against, and I had to fight that. And just actually work with it. I couldn't spend all my time trying to say, no, it's not. I had to just say, well, let's try to prevent it and look beyond that.
Well, I understand you brought along some pictures to give all of us a feel for what you went through on a daily basis, and we're going to take a look at those. And the first picture we see is a road, which might not look like very much to us,
Right.
but you said, what, this is the main road in southern Congo?
Yep, that is the major road in Masenjo, and my house is down in the lower left-hand corner, hidden in the trees. You can see the roof, the tin roof. The road is basically the only road that's going from the south to the north in that area. And after this main road in the main town with 16,000 people, it does narrow down, and you have to do bushwhacking through it with a machete. So it does get smaller.
Let's see what else we have along. Well, they see you there doing some washing.
Yep, got my little friend kids sitting in the back watching me. The children are very curious. They always are wanting to watch, and they follow you around. If you're white, you glow, and as you can see. So they really follow you around, and they're very curious. The children are darling, though.
So that's you at the local laundromat.
Oh,
there.
that's my laundromat, and I'm my own, yeah, I do that by hand. And I'm glad to say I don't have to do that anymore.
Okay. There we have you, and that's the motorcycle you talked about.
Yeah, that's my motorcycle there, and that's my house. I have a rain catchment system up above that look like gutters, but there's a cement jar that I built that catches the water system, and that's the water I drink. There's banana trees in the background that I cut down, and that feeds me bananas wonderfully. And these are surrounding Peace Corps volunteers that are in villages around me.
And the Peace Corps gave you this motorcycle?
Yes, they give you a very nice setup of a beautiful house, and they also give you a motorcycle for transportation.
And we see you there on the river relaxing?
Yeah, that's on the river that's right by, it's about 25 kilometers away from my town. And I just went for a little pirogue ride with the guy that I knew, who's a fisherman. And that's me in a pineapple field. That is one of my friend's pineapple fields. He works and basically sells anything that he can grow. And I just went and visited him.
And that's you and your little kitty, I see?
Well, that's his kitty.
Okay.
Happened to follow us on the trail. And that's a friend of mine. We just decided to have a little barbecue. And that's a traditional house over to the right.
Local restaurant there.
Yeah, and that's my dog I left behind,
Aw.
unfortunately. Wasn't intentional, but yeah.
Well, I spoke today with the Peace Corps spokesperson, and he said one of the hardest things for you is you left to seek medical attention,
Yeah.
not realizing that you would never come back to your village,
Yeah.
and you never really got a chance to say goodbye to your friends.
Yeah, it's really hard because I was going in because I was pretty ill with a couple illnesses. I had malaria, filaria. I had a 6-inch long worm underneath my arm, among other things. And I was just going in for a medical circumstance and to go in and see the doctor. And I just left saying goodbye to my village like I'd be back the next week. And that's when all this war broke out.
So you left the village, you flew to Brazzaville.
Right, from Dolisie.
And you and a Portuguese expatriate are walking around in the city. You realize it's empty.
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, we looked around at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is outside, it was after siesta, realized nobody's out, what's going on? And then all of a sudden we hear this bizarre noise, and as it's coming closer, we realize it's a tank, and it's trailing down right by us. We said, oh, something's wrong. Then we got stopped by one of Lasuba, the president of Congo, one of the military men, and he said, this is a cover of fire, which means that you have to stay in the house because there's fighting going on. And then we heard the shots. We heard a couple shots going off and mortar shells being blasted, grenades going off. And we ran for cover into another Portuguese, one of his friend's apartments that was close by. And I remained there for the next 4 days.
And it was then that you first had a chance to use a cell phone to call your parents?
Right.
And
Right.
you're holding it up and saying, can you hear the bullets in the background?
Right. I was calling my parents and I said, Mom, Dad, if you don't hear from me soon, it probably means because I'm heading home, because this isn't looking good. It's amazing how in other countries in a war situation, which I've never been in before this, that it escalates to a point of just absolute, anarchy at the point. 1 minute I just hear a couple sounds like firecrackers going off, and then about an hour later, there's you know, people lying dead on the street and just tanks rolling by and shooting right underneath my window. It was very unnerving, very shocking.
What goes through your mind in a situation like that?
You know, it's funny because when I first went through it, I thought, you know, I was kind of making jokes about it. I didn't think it was anything big. I thought, oh, you know, it's just the Congolese joking around. You know, you give them a machine gun and, you know, a bottle of whiskey and they'll just, you know, kind of, you know, do, you know, whatever they want. But, you know, after a while, once I started, my Portuguese friend turned and looked at me and he said, this is getting bad. This is going to get bad. And him being in a war situation before, with the last Congolese elections 4 years ago, the same thing happened. So he knew, and I trusted that he said that it would get worse, and it did. It really did.
So you picked up the phone and you called the local Peace Corps office.
Yep.
And what did they do for you then?
Well, basically before that, what happened was we were visited by 20 Cobra, which is the opposition, which is basically we have Sasu, which is a rich man in power from the north, who ran for presidency a couple years ago against Lusuba, which is the current president right now. There's upcoming elections in July coming up. Basically what happened is that 4 people were killed up north. People got angry, and they blamed the military of the current president that this happened. So 400 Cobras came down to form and to do a coup d'etat, and so this is why the fighting was going on initially. After that, 20 Cobra people came and visited the house. I hid in the kitchen. I was told that you don't want to be near military men, if you're a white woman especially, because they've been known to you know, take advantage of women. So I hid in the kitchen. It ended up that they were holding the 2 Portuguese men at gunpoint, asking him for money, asking him for food. One of them ran into the kitchen, asked me to cook up something, and I did. I cooked up some rice and tomatoes, fed them. We gave them about an average of about $100 just for them to get out of our hair and just get out. That night we slept on the ground while mortar shells were being shot off right outside the house.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. I didn't sleep at all, needless to say. And in the morning we were visited again by Lusuba's military, which is the opposition, the president's military, and they came up asking for the same thing. I'm hungry. This is after 4 days of fighting. We were locked in this house. We couldn't leave because there's fighting out on the street. You get shot if you went outside the house. So they took our money and whatnot, and I hid in the bathroom closet for a bit. That's when I called my what's it called, chef in French, my director of the Peace Corps.
Your local Peace Corps
That's right.
person in that area,
Right.
yes.
Right, and I said, my situation is bad, I don't know what else to say, but I explained my situation, that there were people knocking on the door, the military, and they're trying to get in and try to loot the house, and I was in danger. So he said, I'll talk to I'll call the embassy, and you just sit tight. Then I got a phone call on the cell phone, and I hear Jennifer. I said, yes. And he says, well, this is so-and-so from the U.S. Embassy. Explain your situation. I explained it. He says, okay, you're going to show you, there'll be a white car waiting outside. You look out the window. Do not go outside. There was fighting going out on the street at that time, and I waited. I packed my bags. He says, pack your bags now. You're going. So I did that. Looked out the window, and then I saw a Jeep pull up with the Marines with armored, and then a white car with the American flag, the embassy flag.
And I'm sure you were happy to see that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I'm patriotic now.
Yes.
But you know, it was really, it was something like out of a movie, and it's quite amazing that it happened. Then they came up to the door, they grabbed my bags, another person grabbed my arm, stuffed me in the car,
These
slammed
were
the door.
Marines that came up to the door?
18-year-old Marine boys, yeah, American. They were there to protect the embassy, and they came and got me. Pushed me in the car, and they said, go, go, go. And then they got me out of there. And
But you still weren't out of harm's way.
No.
We have a map that will show you where Jen was in the capital, Brazzaville. Oh,
that's my town.
That's
village.
your town.
Yes. That's
That's
Messenja.
your town.
Yeah.
Messenja. And those are the local villages that you worked in.
Yeah.
But here we see Brazzaville. That's the capital of the Republic of Congo, where you had this horrible experience in the apartment of the Portuguese.
Right.
And you had to fly across to Kinshasa.
Right.
You want to describe that? 'Cause
Sure.
I'm sure that was not...
No, that was a problem in itself as well. And of course, when I found out that they wanted me to go to Kinshasa, I said, Kinshasa, you know, that's where everything with the fighting and was going on in Zaire. That's where it was a hot spot about 2 weeks before that. So I thought, why am I going to Kinshasa? That's going to be more dangerous than Brazzaville, but at the time it wasn't. How I got over there was I got escorted by an armored jeep with Marines, and I was also escorted with women and children of the embassy. We were stopped many times by different, and we would go down streets, stop, we would get shot at, we'd have to turn around and find another way to get to the airport.
This was in the white car?
Yes, yes. So, being there, we were keeping our heads down. There were other children of the embassy in the car with me, and I was basically playing babysitter for a bit there and just trying to keep them calm, and so that helped me from staying calm, that I was with children. We stalled at one point, and we actually had some of the Cobras come in and try to bash the windows open and slit the tires. But we did eventually get the car going again. We finally got to the airport, and it was pretty calm for a bit. We started boarding up a 4-seater Cessna plane, but we fit 9 of us in there because we had to get out. Right. Then we started hearing the shots coming closer and closer. Then we saw the Cobras started running from the trees and coming in and starting shooting at the runway. So we had to take off as fast as possible. The pilot asked me to be a co-pilot. And basically, ground control was telling him to, if he gets shot in an event of an emergency or whatnot, I have to tell me to somehow land the plane, which, I thought that would never happen, and it's a good thing it didn't, because I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to do that. But after that, we took off with the lights off on the plane, because that would make it less able for everyone to shoot at us. And the ground control, another U.S. Air Force pilot, was controlling and talking through the headphones, saying where to navigate so you don't get, he knew where the gunshots were coming from, so we wouldn't get shot.
So you fly over and you see and you hear the gunshots?
Yeah, it was at sunset, and I saw the sunset over to the left. That was my last view of Congo, the country that I love. And it was pretty much going up in smoke, but we were just flying over to, just avoid the gunshot fire. And we were shot at, because as we landed in Kinshasa, the pilot found some bullets that were stuck in the plane. However, it's not dangerous, really, unless it's very chancy that you can get shot in the gas tank area of the plane.
And then you had the fortunate luck that U.S. Ambassador
Bill Richardson
yep. was in Kinshasa.
Yep.
And you took the plane back with him?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm the most spoiled Peace Corps volunteer, I think, out there. He just happened to be going in to talk to Kabila, who is now the new president of Zaire, who took over from Mobutu. And he was going to talk about forming a new democracy. And so this started out that we had to be in Brazzaville, and all this problem came out with Lasuba and Sassou, which are the 2 leaders of Congo. So he went over there to have talks with them as well, and he was going to be on his way back the next morning, so they let us go on the plane with him.
So what did you guys talk about in the ride?
In the ride home? Not much, just basically the bad experience of getting out of Brazzaville, explaining my story, and he was also telling me what Kabila said, what Lasuba said, telling me that he doesn't think that the fighting is going to stop, and it doesn't sound like that they came to any kind of decision on stopping and having a ceasefire. So that means that the fighting will continue.
Right.
So.
The latest was that the U.S. ambassador has now pulled out. All Americans are out of the Republic of Congo, and they've issued stern warnings against all Americans to traveling there,
Yep.
calling it very irrational.
I'll say.
So, has this changed you, this experience?
Yeah, I think in ways that I haven't been able to see yet. And I think slowly I'll be able to see that as I spend more time in Darien. That I feel like nothing can really faze me now, one thing. I feel really like I can, I've been through very harsh conditions, through travel conditions, through, being in a war situation, which I never fathomed that I'd ever be in. I really feel like, I was going through counseling for a bit in D.C. because they think I went through what you would consider shell shock. Right. With any soldier going through a war and being in that situation. It did shake me up a bit. But in retrospect, I really think that it's something, that other countries always go through, and it's something that in America we're lucky enough not to ever have experienced on our own land in a long time. So, and it's and my views have changed as far as development. It's very hard to have, help these people develop in a developing country when political unrest keeps breaking out and causing, you know, that development to stop. So.
Knowing now what you knew, what you didn't know back then,
Mm-hmm.
would you do it all over again?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah, in fact, I think I am going back. They're going to try to reassign me to a new country, and I'm hoping to complete my service with them, because I think what I was really doing was something that was worthwhile. And I was learning a heck of a lot, that there's just things you can learn that you can't learn anywhere else. So.
Does the whole thing seem real to you?
Not yet. It feels really like a dream. I feel like I've just been in a coma for a year and I just woke up, and people and friends and family are the same but a little bit different, and you're really in a bubble there, and you're really just kind of, you know, living the African life, not knowing what's going on in America, and it's very tough in that, but it's a very wonderful life there too.
Well, your mother told me that her prayers were answered. She said she had family and friends and many people in the church
Mm-hmm.
showing a lot of support for them, and definitely all their prayers are answered, and you're able to attend their 25th wedding anniversary vow renewal.
Yep, that was last Saturday.
That was an added bonus?
Yes, definitely. It was fun. I always joke and say I planned the Civil War to be home for my parents' wedding. But no, it was really great, because I got to see all my brothers and sisters and my whole family that flew in from everywhere around the country to come in. So, you know, it was a nice homecoming for me too. I got to see everybody. So.
What was your favorite part, looking back on the whole thing? What's the one moment that stuck out positively?
Positively. Well, that would probably be my just learning of, that would probably be the children. I had really a close relationship with my next door neighbor's children, and they would come over and call me Tantine Jenny, which is Aunt Jenny. And they would come over and I would feed them, give them pineapples and bananas from my garden, and you know, I kind of took them in, and they were like one of my kids, and my neighbors would call them my children. It's the Mandeli's children, which mean white person children. And you know, that it was just the children to know that, you know, I could have helped them in some way or another, and you know, I had a friend.
Well, that's quite an adventure,
Yeah.
and I want to thank you for sharing it with us. And you
Thank
do
you.
it again in a heartbeat, right?
Absolutely.
Well, to thank Jen Rikart, our guest today on Darien Dateline. Thank you for watching. I'm Lamar Goring. Mbate.